Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. As you can probably tell immediately, I'm having a little trouble with my throat. I've been traveling a lot lately. I went down to Cleveland for an annual leadership summit that the executive committee calls in all of the state overseers and youth directors and other church leaders. And so when I travel like that, and I often don't get quite as much sleep or sleep as well as I should, and you know the drill, same thing happens. So as one of my members used to say, I got a little bit of the crud, but I'm feeling a lot better than I sound. But I wanted to go ahead and record this video today. I want to try to send a little bit of another chapter of my life as I'm introducing myself to you, so that you can understand my heart and maybe at least have a few street creds to earn the right to listen and maybe even make a few suggestions as we work together in ministry. And I will say it's been gratifying to me to hear from a lot of you. You're listening to these and you're saying such kind things, words of encouragement, both ministers and laity. And so at the end of the day, it's really warmed my heart to begin to hear from laity because guys and gals, at the end of the day, those of us in credentialed ministry, we work for God's people. And if we don't have our people, then what we do is meaningless. And so God bless you all of the wonderful Illinois ministerial team, but all the precious people that serve the Lord. You volunteer, you pay the bills, you love us, you care for us. And so I salute you as well. But anyway, I want to jump into my lesson today. I'm going to couch it around four events, and I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And so anyway, this is Introducing Myself, Part 5, Saluda, my first church. So I've been talking to you about my first assignment as a youth pastor and all of that, but now, I should have thought about this ahead of time. It's probably about 1980, maybe, I think, when I got my first church. And so that gives you a little bit of perspective. Sonja was still 18. I was 22 by then. And so we pack up from Fort Mill and we head off to our first church in Saluda, South Carolina. So anyway, you can look that up. It's there. They still have a church, a thriving church. I'm very proud of them. And they've got a special anniversary coming up here in a year or so. The pastor's already reached out to me. I was proud of him planning way ahead like that. But anyway, so let me couch this in 4 events. And so let me start how we got to Saluda. This, as I said, this was when we were in Fort Mill as the youth pastor. And the people had been kind enough, they bought a parsonage, a youth parsonage for us, and we had moved in, and we had been there just a few days. And during that time, as we had moved in, we went to a district service. And the district overseer there in Rock Hill, Richard Dillingham, some of you may know him and remember him, pastored a great church that is known today as the Garden Sanctuary Church of God. And so Brother Dillingham got up, and during the service, he said, I want you to help us pray. The Garden Sanctuary, we are praying and looking for a young couple that would be willing to move to New York City and plant a church. And we want to partner with them in planting a church in downtown New York City. And God had been moving in my heart, and Sonja and I both, and we were happy at Fort Mill. We knew the people there, they knew us, we loved them, that they loved us, and so it was nothing like that. But I just knew in my heart that eventually God had called me to be a pastor, to have my own church, my own responsibility. And so that was beginning to grow in me now. And so when Brother Dillingham asked that question, Sonja and I immediately, we just kind of looked at each other. I don't know if I never talked to him about it. So I don't really know if he had us in mind or he was just throwing it out there and just really primarily about getting the district to help them pray. But on the way back, after the service, to my credit, I didn't just go up and volunteer. I wanted to talk to Sonja about it. And so on the way back, Sonja and I talked about it and said, hey, let's let's call him. Let's go. If he's willing to send us, let's go. And so as soon as I got home, I called Brother Dillingham. The phone was busy. I called again. The phone was busy. I called again. The phone was busy. Throughout the evening, I kept calling, and the phone, I don't know if he had taken the phone off the hook. I don't know what the deal was, but all the way up to 11:59 at night, I kept calling. And I told my wife, I said, this is the last time. It'll be 12 o'clock. And if he doesn't answer this time, I'm going to take it. Let's take it as God's will that he doesn't want us to go to New York City. So I called one more time. The phone was busy. I put the phone down and the phone immediately rang. 12 o'clock at night. And it was my brother-in-law, Larry Anderson, who is retired now, but a well-known pastor of the Church of God and worked in state work as well as a youth director. And anyway, Larry called me. He had pastored Saluda, and he had moved on. He was pastoring somewhere else then, but they had reached out to him, and he said, David, Saluda's open. Would you like to go there? And I just said, yes. What do I need to do? And so Larry said, call the overseer in the morning and go in and see him and ask for it. So I went in, I called that next morning, and immediately it ought to be a warning sign to you if the overseer immediately sees you. I'm just kidding. But they said, sure. They were very kind. Sure, Brother Kemp, come on in. Here, I'm a 22-year-old kid. Come on in. Brother Goff, our overseer at that time was Brother Goff, and he would be happy to see you. And I came in, and I said, Brother Goff, I understand Saluda's open, and I would like to go there. And here's another warning sign. He said, well, Brother David, I believe he called me David. Brother David, I think you would do good there. I'll be glad to send you. And just like that, I became the pastor of the Saluda Church of God. And so he got out a map on his huge desk. His desk was about as big as Delaware, or Rhode Island. But on that huge desk, and he got out a map and he showed me where Saluda was. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what the salary package was. I wanted to go. And we went there knowing nothing about it. I'd never heard of Saluda except faintly from Larry and Sharon pastoring there. I didn't know anything about it. And without any questions, we went to Saluda. And we were thrilled. It was a thrill to get to go there. And so that's how we got there. And so now leads me to the first question. Are you willing to go anywhere? Are you willing to go anywhere? I think the whole New York City thing, looking back over our life, can you imagine, even with this laryngitis or whatever it is I've got right now, but you can still hear that Southern accent. I grew up on a mill hill. Some of you will know what that is. And my wife grew up out in the middle of nowhere in the country. Could you imagine a Mill Hill country girl, a Mill Hill boy and a country girl, country showing up in New York City? They wouldn't have known what to do with us, and we would not have known what to do with them. But we were willing to go. We were willing to go, not knowing where we would go, what we would live in, what we would make. We were just willing to go anywhere. We were willing to go through any open door. And I don't mean that. I don't mean to make it look like we're some great saint, but I do think that's just the way preachers were raised in those days, back when I started. You just were willing to go. You go, if they needed a church somewhere, you go plant a church. Or if there was an open church, you just go. You just went. You went anywhere. No strings attached. God just called you and you just were willing to go. You were looking for an opportunity. Somewhere along the line, church has become too much of a business. We've become Church Inc., Church Incorporated. And I don't mean to rebuke us, but maybe there's some of us here today that will go as long as I don't have to give up this, or I don't have to leave mama, or I don't have to quit my job. And preaching is kind of a part-time another one of our little sideline things. So I want to ask you today, Are you willing to go anywhere? That's a question that every minister has to answer. And the way we answer that question will determine the quality of our stewardship and what we hear from God someday, I truly believe. But anyway, so we arrive at Saluda. And this is our story. Everybody's got their version of it. And the people were kind and gracious, and they welcomed us. But when I got there, I discovered that the church was in financial ruin. They had no money. They had 3 different checking accounts. The previous pastor, I didn't get all into it because what's done is done, and that was the overseer's responsibility, and I don't know what he did, and I don't care. But there were three checking accounts. One had $10,000 in it that had been a donation that had been given to the church to make improvements on the church. The church was run down. It was no resources, very few people. We had 19 people our first Sunday, as counting Sonja and me, so 17 people. And the church was, in a lot of ways, in ruins in a lot of different ways. But it had that core group of precious people. But the church, they had those 3 checking accounts. That $10,000 had been spent, and after that, the preacher left. There was no record of the checks. We couldn't find what they were spent on. Another checking account was in the red, and another checking account had like less than $2. That's all the church had. The church was in foreclosure. None of the bills, the utility bills were paid. It was a financial ruin. And here I was, just a kid. No money, no salary, nothing. And so what do you do? Well, I knew I had to go talk to the banker. My first church, I didn't want to lose it. And I know the building's not the church, but it's where the church meets. And so I had a shiny brown suit. I looked like a televangelist back before we had televangelists, I guess you could say. But that was the best thing I had. I put that dark brown, shiny suit on, put my tie on, this 22-year-old kid. And I made an appointment with the banker. And I walked into that banker's office, and I introduced myself. Hi, I'm David Kemp. I'm the new pastor of the Saluda Church of God. And this is what I said. The Church of God has sent me here to take care of this situation. And he knew I was there to talk about the foreclosure. I'll never forget that banker. He kind of slid back from his desk and looked at me. I said, the Church of God has sent me here to take care of this. And if you'll give me 60 days, I'll get this caught up. I don't know why I said 60 days. I wished I'd have said 6 years or something. But anyway, I was a kid. What do I know? And I'll never forget, he slid back and he looked at me. He said, okay, preacher, you've got 60 days. And I walked out of the office. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. We had no tithe payers, and the few that would pay tithes, they were self-employed, and their income was very sporadic. Boy, I can't even talk today. Sorry. So it was just. But in 60 days, we got it caught up, and I can't remember, but I'm thinking that's been many years ago. I'm thinking I know we did, because we ended up buying land while I was there. We paid that mortgage off under my watch, and ended up buying some more land, which now is increased parking and a place where they've got their own parsonage, and God blessed us richly there. And so that leads me to my second question that I want to ask you. You see, what I did is I took responsibility there. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do, but this is what I did have. I had God's call on my life. I really believed that God had called me, and I had the sanction of the Church of God. The Church of God had credentialed me. And I remember my dad telling me, son, all the Church of God owes you is an opportunity. Now that they've credentialed you, all they owe you is an opportunity, and the rest is up to you. It didn't occur to me to call the state office and ask for money. I didn't even know you could do that until many years later. I got on the state council and found out people, every time we met, there was a long list of people asking for money. And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, but I didn't know you could do that. I just took responsibility because I had the call of God on my life. and I had the sanction of the Church of God. I represented the Church of God, the entire General Assembly of the Church of God in Saluda. And I stepped up and I did something. And so I want to ask you this question. And the more I learned about Illinois, I have never lived in a state that was as liberal as this politically. And so I'm going to have to get used to all of this myself. And I know that there's been a lot of change in the economy, a lot of industry that is no longer relevant or has moved away. And so there's a lot of dying churches and or dying communities. And there's a lot of challenges out there. We've gone through COVID. But see, I understand. I remember when the mills closed down in South Carolina, our economy was devastated. There's always reasons. There's always things. Being in a dying community, in a little church. So what are you going to do? Well, I want to ask you this. Here's my question. It is what it is. Maybe the mill's shut down or the industry shut down. Maybe your top tithe payers have, for whatever reason, they've moved away. They've got a job transfer. I don't know what the situation is. Maybe right in the middle of a dying community. It is what it is. Are you willing to embrace the reality that is, take responsibility for changing it, and just doing something? Just do something. Brothers and sisters, they say behind every successful man is a surprised mother-in-law. Well, I'm more surprised than my mother-in-law of any success that we've had. We didn't have I didn't have some master strategy to get where I'm at today. We just got up and tried to do something. I was clueless, but we just started doing something. Sonja and I both. We'd see a need, we'd see an opportunity, and we'd just start doing something about it. Sonja started at that church. There were several little kids. She started a Sunday school class for them. We had some people that loved to sing. We started a choir. I was the choir director, and Sonja was the piano player. We started a choir. And people that liked to sing started coming. People that had children started. We had something to offer them, and we just started doing what we had to do. Maybe all you've got is older people. Well, have the best senior adult ministry in the whole community. One thing leads to another. Just do something. Spruce up the building. Start cutting the grass. Repaint the sign. It is what it is. I can complain about it. I can wish things were different. Or I can take responsibility and say I will do something. Every day, I'm going to do something. That's what turned us around when I arrived to Saluda and we paid the mortgage off and ended up even buying property. Now, let me discuss the third. I had 4 questions and I got events to set them up. And so the third question is, let me set it up this way. Of course, I had to be bivocational. There was just no way around it. My salary was about $50 a week, if I remember correctly. It was $50 a week, and that was not guaranteed even then, because again, the few tithe payers I had, they didn't get paid regularly. And so I was bivocational. And so early on, I remember I was working at a grocery store, being a bag boy. And I have nothing against grocery stores. I've always, matter of fact, enjoyed working in a grocery store. My first job when I turned 16 was a bag boy at Winn-Dixie in Dillon, South Carolina. I was an assistant store manager in Cleveland at a little independent grocery store when I was going to college. So I'm not too good to work in a grocery store. I like grocery stores. I like that industry. But I was a pastor, and I saw myself as a pastor, not as a part-time pastor doing another job. I had to work several different jobs there. And I remember, though, I was working there at the grocery store, and I was ashamed and embarrassed. Here I am, the pastor of the Saluda Church of God, and I'm a bag boy. And I remember on one day, when things were slow, I would do stocking or price changing. And so they had asked me to change the prices of the olives, all the olive bottles, those little round olive bottles. And this is back before you had barcodes and all this stuff. And so you'd use a lady's fingernail polish remover And that blue stamp, those ratchets that you would stamp them, I would have to clean those things off. At least it smelled good. I guess I got a little bit of eye. Just kidding. But I would have to clean those little bottles off, and I was changing the price by 1 penny. And my whole world had been reduced to a little narrow olive section. And I was so down. I was so discouraged. Is this it? Is this ministry? Is this what it's about? God, is this what? I thought you sent me to Saluda to be the pastor here. And my whole world was reduced to that little olive section. And there's not many times I can just say God has just almost audibly spoke to me. It's like I heard a preacher at the leadership conference and say, people's asked me, how do you know if it's God? And he said, if you've ever heard God's voice once, you'll know. And so I knew that God spoke to me, and this is what he said. He said, David, if you for the rest of your life will take care of the olive section in front of you, I'll take care of the rest. And I never forgot that, and it brought me hope. Can't believe I'm getting emotional right now. But there's been a lot of olive sections in my life, and I bet there's been a lot of olive sections in your life. When all of your hopes and dreams were way off somewhere else, and all you had, your life had been reduced to this one issue, this one problem, this one keep you awake at night ordeal, and you think, God, is this what you called me to do? Is this what it's all about? And I want to remind you, if you'll take care of the one thing in front of you, one problem at a time, one day at a time, one struggle at a time, God will take care of the rest. I am living proof. And so that leads me to the third question. Are you willing to trust God with the outcome? And I'm not just talking to pastors here today. Maybe some of you are in a rough marriage right now, or you're in school, and you're trying to live right, and everybody's working against you. I don't know all the different situations, but what we want to do sometimes is control the outcome. You can't control the outcome. All you can do is control your reaction to the moment. Just take care of changing the prices on the olives, 1 penny at a time, 1 bottle at a time. Just doing something, and trust God with the outcome. I promise you, he will not let you down. All right, now let's lead to I want to go to the fourth question. Let me read a passage of scripture I had put here. Are you willing to trust God with the outcome? And this comes from the kingdom of God is like. That. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. I got a little emotional there. Wasn't expecting that. But here's a passage in Mark chapter 4. And Jesus said, the kingdom of God is as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. See, no big plan. He's just scattering seed, just trying to do something. And should sleep by night and rise by day, and the seed should sprout and grow, and he himself does not know how. For the earth yields crops by itself, first the blade, then the head, and after that the full grain of head. But here's what the man does. But when the grain ripens, immediately he puts in the sickle, because the harvest has come. And guys and gals, I know with the church growth movement, and there's a lot of good things, I think there's some things that hopefully I can suggest to help you. But you can't control church growth. That's why I appreciate humility from guys that have succeeded. When I sense arrogance and hear a whole lot about them and not a whole lot about God, it makes me wary. Because at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, we don't know how to do it. We can't control the future. We don't know what the next big thing that's going to come and knock the world on its knees. We just scatter seed. Just do something and trust God. Go to bed at night. God, I've done the best I know to do. And then when God mysteriously, when the Spirit of God moves in your life and the harvest comes, then there's the joy. He gets all the praise and all the glory, but you get to reap the benefits. So trust Him. All right, now the fourth question. I learned the fourth question on the last day of being the pastor of the Saluda Church of God, or maybe even the day after. So we had been at Saluda for about 2.5 years, and a district overseer, a couple hours down the road, a different district, the Aiken district, there was a church in New Ellington that had come open. And he stayed on us, and I'll talk more about this next week. He stayed on us about wanting to come. Maybe he saw a sharp young couple or a clueless young couple that at least had some potential. I don't know what he saw in us, but he really stayed on us, and he said they've got a parsonage, and we didn't have a parsonage there, and they've got a $300 a week salary, and after a while, he kept dangling that out there, and so we decided to go. It was a better deal down the road. Not something I'm ashamed to say this now. I'm not proud to say this. It was just a better deal down the road. And so we decided we'd do it. And I got up on Sunday when the overseer had blessed it and all the vote had been taken. I don't know what all they did, but I think they took a vote. And when it was all done, I got up on the Sunday and I announced to my church that I was leaving. On Monday morning, there's a knock on the door. And one of the men, there were several. By this time, the church had grown 60, 70, 80. It had really grown. It was thriving. We had things going. And the church was doing good. We broke tithe records. And I remember the church, in the history of the church, we got over $1,000 for the month for the tithe record. I mean, things were going great. And one of the men that every Sunday he took us out to eat because he wanted to make sure we got one good meal. He borrowed money one time on money he knew he was coming in. He went ahead and borrowed money so that he could pay tithes, so that I'd get a little paycheck and we could get the bills paid. He loved us. And I remember I was living in a mobile home, and I was standing up high, and he was down on the steps, and I was looking down at him. I looked down into his eyes. This grown man, he was older than me, this grown man, a businessman, hardworking man, and he looked up to me, and he had tears streaming down his face, and he said, I'll never forget this. Preacher, why are you leaving us? And it was like a dagger in my heart. And that was when I realized that ministry is not a game. It's not even a career. It's not about moving up the ladder. It's not about getting the next deal. It's not about getting a better package. It's not about prestige. Ministry is about people. We are handling their lives. The good, the bad, the ugly, the church bosses, the mean old people that are just drink vinegar, the precious little lambs, all of them. I'll share with you my values later on, but one of my number one value is that people matter. That's the template I try. Is this about people, or am I making it about something else? And that day was when that started in my life, and the deed had been done, the die had been cast, and I was out of there. But I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that question. Preacher, why are you leaving us? That was the day I realized that ministry is about people. And if it ever stops being about people, then it's not really ministry. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's why God came. He loves people. And so that leads me to my fourth question. Are you willing to love the people you've got and do what's in their best interest? Are you willing to love the people you've got and do what's in their best interest? If we're not careful, we'll make ministry where we're at about getting that old rickety pulpit out of there that came off the ark and bringing in a new, sexy, slender pulpit or something, or blackening the windows or darkening the ceiling and getting lights or convincing people about a certain kind of music, or cutting out a Sunday night service, and none of those things are necessarily bad. Please don't misunderstand me or misinterpret me. But just ask yourself, what's in the people that I've got? We're constantly trying to make church about the people we want to get. Well, what about the people you've got? They may not be like you. They may not be your age. They may not have your educational understanding or level, but they're the people God sent you to. And what did that highly immoral woman that had been married 4 or 5 times, was living with a man, the town harlot, what did she say to the village? Come and see. Jesus had made such an impact on her life. He took what he got, the woman at the well, the one woman right there, and he ministered to her, and she ended up bringing the whole village. You may have Pastor, you may have a handful of old people. So many of our churches now have declined for so many years, and our kids have left and moved away. And all you've got maybe is a handful of older people. And I hope you get children. I hope you get young people. I hope you get some young couples. Who wouldn't want those? But right now you've got old people. Do what's in their best interest. And there may be 2 or 3 selfish ones, but if you'll do what's in their best interest and grow those people, healthy sheep at all ages will produce sheep. They'll start giving you little lambs. The way to grow your church is not to worry about growing your church. The way to grow your church is to worry about the people God's given you and what can I do to serve them. Say, for instance, you're running 30 people. That means you have about 8 families. You know you can make 1 phone call a day and pretty much reach everybody every week. You could visit maybe at a little coffee shop or at the school. But even if you're bivocational, everybody in your church, somebody in every family in your church every week could get a touch from you. You keep doing that. Call them, visit them, and just listen. Listen to their needs. Listen to their gripes. Listen to their fears. And listen to God, and let those 2 guide you. And just keep ministering to them, blessing them, doing what is in their best interest, loving them. And one day, one of them is going to be so changed, they're going to call a friend, come and see. Come and see my pastor. She cares about us. And I believe they will care about you. And that's how you grow a church, by growing your people. So I've talked enough. Let me run the 4 questions by you again today. It all happened. These are lessons I learned at my first church that I treasure to this day. I love those precious people. Saluda Church of God. And if any of you happen to see this, some of my former members are still living. My first clerk went on to be with the Lord just during the Christmas season this last year. But Forrest, you're still there, her husband, and others. But God bless you, Saluda. Thank you for loving us and caring for us and giving us a chance. And hopefully we did some good there. We might have left a little too soon, but forgive us. And let's remember the good times. But here's the 4 questions. Are you willing to go anywhere? No strings attached. Question number 2. It is what it is. Are you willing to embrace the reality that is, take responsibility for changing it, and just start doing something, even if you don't know exactly what to do? Question number 3, are you willing to trust God with the outcome? And question number 4, are you willing to love the people you've got and do what's in their best interest? So there you go, introducing myself, lessons I learned at Saluda. So I hope if during my time at Illinois, if you are going to just say one thing about me, I hope you will know and learn through my experience here. Whatever you want to say about old David Kemp, at least for him, people mattered. Let me have a word of prayer with you. Lord, I love you. I thank you for the privilege of being here in Illinois. I thank you for every faithful minister, pastor, ministerial team. I thank you for the precious people we serve. And Lord, use the Church of God in Illinois to somehow make a difference in Illinois. As we minister to our own people, help us to be salt and light and make this a better state. And wherever these words go, that pastor that his life's been reduced or her life's been reduced to an olive section somewhere, give them hope and courage to do something, to be faithful, and to trust you with the outcome. And give us the love. It's not always easy. Give us a heart of love to love the people we've got. I ask it in the name of Jesus, praying that you will bless us and keep us, that you will make your face shine upon us and be gracious to us, and that you will lift up your countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen. God bless you. Let's go get them. Let's run to win for the gospel's sake.